Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard.
This episode is powered by Swyftx, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown. Just like many of the athletes and business leaders we feature on Scoreboard.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast. I'm joined by Gary Hall Jr. Gary, thank you so much for being part of this series.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My personal assistant told me that you've got 2.7 million followers, so that's a big deal. That's thanks for having me.
Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, we'll see. Maybe after this particular podcast episode. We're sitting here in Australia on Wednesday, the 20th of August, but you are in the US, so it is Tuesday, the 19th of August. How was your Tuesday, the 19th of August, Gary Hall Jr.?
It's a bright sunny day right now, and I'm just getting over this terrible flu that had me in bed for days, and so it's just like a rebirth. It feels good.
And the last 12 months, you turned 50, and then things happened during the year. Do you want to talk about your year, if you want to sum it up from your 50th birthday to where you are now?
Yeah, 50 has been the worst year of my life. It's, I think naturally it's that midlife crisis that everybody refers to, where you really take inventory of what's important, what's the next chapter, a 10-year chapter going to look like. What's the meaning of life? What's important? That type of stuff comes up naturally at this juncture in a life timeline. And I had some compounding events that hyper exacerbated that tremendously. And that was a fire in January that took my home business and every worldly possession. So it's been topsy-turvy. This year of 5-0 for me.
Yeah, and in terms of perspective on sport and perspective on life, obviously things change. How are you feeling now? Are you going okay?
Yeah. There's processing involved, and something that definitely categorizes as trauma. You take these things in stride, and there are silver linings that take time to reveal themselves, but it certainly has enhanced kind of perspective, and so yeah, you learn a lot through something like that about yourself and about the world we live in.
With the trauma, that happened through the last 12 months or so, what's important to you now? What's some of the daily habits that you kind of get into now to kind of go, right, I just want to get back on track?
Yeah, so I mean, more than security or like stability, the thing that I missed much more than any cherished personal possession or some concept of wealth or security was the business that I had was Learn to Swim School, and these relationships with kids, ages 2 to 6 years old, and their families, and all of that just being blown away like a leaf blower. And scattered, and that's what's really been the hardest thing to process, is the loss of those friendships and relationships. um, some things are replaceable, other things not. I lost 10 Olympic medals, and the International Olympic Committee was super generous to step up and provide replica medals at an awards ceremony held in Luzon with President Thomas Bach. And my son, who is an aspiring young swimmer, 17, was able to join me. So, my career predates him. So he was able to kind of see something, connect with kind of a previous chapter in my life as an Olympic swimmer.
I'm going to touch on that for a second. The Olympic spirit, talked about the off the field, the competitiveness, but also the friendship and what comes with it. Were you communicated by a few people that you'd played with, and people that had reached out to you, I suppose, and built new friends and stronger friends potentially through that traumatic event?
Yeah. I shared previously that the third person to reach out to me, and this is in the immediate aftermath of the fire, was Ian Thorpe. And Michael Klim and Grant Hackett were not far behind on that number of people reaching out. And so many people reached out. They were just quick to it. I have no idea how Ian found out so fast, but I mean, the only two people that called before him were family members.
There you go, and well, it was obviously made news headlines around the world. What did you do after the immediate? I saw that Instagram post about you going through your house and whatnot, and obviously, horrific events. What did you do immediately? What did you hang around California, or did you try and move away?
Yeah, so I had to get out of LA, felt that need, and went down, and my family, sister, brothers, and parents live in North San Diego County, about 2 hours south of LA. And so I ended up shacking up a little guest house set up. And just, it was a leaf in a tornado kind of processing in that immediate time after the fire. And yeah, I went down. I hid out in Florida for a couple months, and continuing to play with the idea of moving back down there. But committed myself to staying in California in the Del Mar area, Encinitas area. My son is a senior in high school, and I'll see him through this year, and get him off to college, and then maybe go down to the tropics.
There you go. And in regards to getting back to California, it was family based. Are you thinking about doing a swim school again at some point in time?
Yeah, it's unlikely that I'll attempt that here in California. I will probably start it right away once I get down to Florida. Um, yeah, I'm working on a different project as a priority focus, and that is setting up a sports gambling platform so that you can bet on swimming races.
And in terms of swimming, you were a charismatic swimmer per se. You were an entertainer. Where did that come from? Because swimming it's up and down, and you pop your head up and you go, "Oh, who won?"
Yeah, so I have to point out to some that that was tongue in cheek. A lot of it that it originated when I was a no good swimmer at a young age. Had toothpick arms, and kissing my biceps with toothpick arms is kind of funny,
Is that
especially
like
when
me
it's
right now? You reckon I got
yeah.
toothpick arms?
So like that was me, like behind the starting blocks. No shot at winning, and it was just a funny thing, and so I just kept doing it, and it was a way of keeping the sport light, taking some of the pressure off, a reminder, and this came in crystal clear after a diabetes diagnosis. Sport is entertainment, right? Like, I'm not saving the world putting on a speedo and swimming fast. Like, that's it's great for other swimmers that have that dream of chasing down the Olympic the medals and stuff like that. But I was just out there hamming it up a little bit. I'm off pool deck, a very shy person, and always was growing up. I was a shy kid and hated the idea of having to be in the media, and really struggled with that initially. And so, even as a teenager, I was addressing this with sports psychologists, and yeah, what we came upon was this idea to create a persona for these events, and so I just picked the most outrageous kind of sports personas of the time, which was like Evil Knievel and these like 1980s wrestlers, that were just screaming nonsense and just out of their minds. And and also I point out that in the most popular sports, wrestling, had more viewers than swimming, definitely.
The
And
WWF, which ended up becoming the WWE. That's right. The early '90s, the Hulkamania. All right, the
that's
Macho
right.
Man Randy Savage.
And Vince McMahon, I mean, he was a P.T. Barnum guy, and in boxing, Don King was outrageous. So it was like and in basketball, Dennis Rodman was, kind of the star of the
Bill
darling of the
Laimbeer from the
moment.
Detroit Pistons. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so, you had all these every sport kinda had these outrageous characters, but swimming had remained so buttoned down, and it wasn't, some goal of mine to, "Oh, let's promote the sport better than that." I was just, you know, having a laugh about it with a, small group of friends, and you were either in on the joke or you weren't, and so people either saw that and were like, "Oh, he's making fun of ego," or, "Oh, this guy's got ego." I was always like, I don't know, just making fun of, like, these outrageous characters and mimicking, what the
Did you
wrestlers were doing and stuff like that.
did it help you calm your nerves at all?
It made it more fun, and it fueled rivalries or whatever, and it ultimately had a very positive effect, that it brought attention to the sport. Um, and that's something that ultimately, wasn't an intention out of the gates, but what I came to realize, and others too, that it was good promotion for the sport.
And did you watch the recent sort of documentary on the 100-meter race on Netflix about the 100 meter? So this is the sprinting race, not the swimming race, where the egos and it's almost theatre. Do you feel like that you were early days in that? Like I was part of that, right?
Yeah, sure. And I wasn't doing anything other that Usain Bolt, was doing before his, and have fun with it. If we're betting on track or swimming, like, I'm gonna bet on the guy that's smiling back behind the starting blocks, right? Like, that gives me confidence. Like, if you can see somebody hamming it up or just loose and relaxed enough to, like, be cracking a joke or something like that, I like that. That's
And then
that's the right mindset to win.
yeah, true. From a shy person that you described yourself as, to then be this persona that lead in, and then to perform, and then to have the media attention and the camera shoved in your face. How did you deal with that, being inherently kind of shy?
Yeah, sometimes very, yeah, uh, bristly. Sometimes I wasn't always the best interview. Um, I I don't know. I I remember doing one interview where it was just like one word answers, and that I just didn't want to be doing it. So I don't know. I can see where it comes off the wrong way.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that doesn't
but
come off the wrong way. I'm just saying that it's like from a point of view, you had a lot of fame, a lot of eyes on you, and from an inherently shy person, that must be a little bit difficult.
yeah, being feeling like, oh yeah, I'm able to play this character, and we all do this to some degree. Like, there's a work persona, something you don't behave the same way, like, amongst your college buddies, when you do in a professional, business meeting or something like that. So we all play a role to a certain degree, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. When did you realize that you were good at swimming?
Um, uh, Probably young. So I was late to join a swim team, but I was really fortunate, privileged, in that I, as a youngster, was able to go with my grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins to Europe in the summer times, and we'd travel around and kind of go to these resort towns. And my aunt, I was like 9 or 10, like around then. And we did it for years. Like, she would hustle. So we'd go to like a resort place like Baden-Baden in Germany, and there's a swimming pool, and we go down to the swimming pool, and we're just horsing around. My cousins and I were playing, splashing, making a bunch of noise, whatever. And inevitably, there'd always be somebody a lap swimmer, and my aunt would go over and get to talking with them, and then challenge them to a race and pull me over and be like, "Hey, see, you swim really well, like, this is my cousin, like, nephew, and next thing I know, like, she'd be setting up these races, and I'd win, and she'd give me $5 for every race I won. So like, yeah, for me, it was great. Like I was like, I have no idea how much she was making, but that was the hustle. And so I knew at an early age that I was, a pretty good swimmer. And I remember in sixth grade, there was a field trip to in school to the local pool, and the kids, like my classmates, talked one of the lifeguards into racing me, and this was long before I was on the swim team. And I got up and I beat a lifeguard in sixth grade, and so yeah, I mean, I knew I could swim, and part of that comes from spending a lot of time in South Florida, Miami Beach, in the Bahamas as a youngster. I was free diving and spearfishing from the time I was like 6 years old. Is when I was first started spearing fish, and so I knew the water. I loved the water. That's where I fell in love with the water. That's where I fell in love with swimming. But I didn't apply that to swim team and pool swimming until much later.
Did you think sort of maybe in your teenage years that you could be a professional swimmer, you could sort of have a goal, or was you sort of just going, well, this is pretty good, I'm winning, but it's okay?
Yeah, at 19 is when I figured out that I could compete at the world stage, and it came. I had made the steps. I, gone to junior nationals, and just broke some records, and was the top recruit out of high school, and even at that point, I didn't think maybe the Olympics were possible. Wasn't thinking about it. My goal was just to swim in college. Swam 1 year at the University of Texas, and had already transferred out before going to that summer nationals and qualifying for the World Championships in Rome. That was the first time I competed for Team USA and internationally, and I got second place to the world record holder and reigning Olympic champion. So it wasn't until then, really, that I was like, okay, I'm good enough to be a contender here. And that became my goal, Olympics. Yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I
And
wanted.
did you give up a lot of things to make that happen? Were you enjoying swimming?
Yeah.
Did you sort of put a few things aside?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's if I created a pie chart of the work glory ratio, right? Like it's such a thin sliver of like what people watch. They watch the Olympic Games on TV. They see packed stands like a stadium, like any other professional sport, and um, it's not glamorous at all. It's the grind. It's training in a pool with an audience of one. That's your swim coach with a stopwatch, and it's day in and day out. You know, for one race a year. One meet a year. Um, so I don't know. I, yeah, it's the
The daily
grind.
grind, yeah. I'm also curious to know about like the milliseconds that you get in such a short race
Uh,
as well, and what you were trying to do to kind of alleviate that, whether it was pure strength or whether there was other things that you're thinking about. And then when you're in the pool for that 20 odd seconds, what's going through your head?
Yeah, the best state of mind is kind of the Buddhism kind of just blank, turn that brain off. Don't go into the monkey mind where you start analyzing or overthinking everything. All the work's been done. You earn confidence. That confidence is earned in the training that you've done, and so that you can get to that point before the race where you have the confidence in the training that you've done and the team that you've assembled around you, and you just have to at that point turn the brain off. Once the starting gun goes, and so a lot of preparation to go into that. But that's where you want to be, calm and focused.
Did you train to have your brain blank, or was it just too quick a time that you'd like, we're just going here?
Yeah, well, I'm fortunate to have come into the sport at an interesting time. out of the 80s and 90s, anybody familiar with the sport will know that it was just distance oriented, that the only measurement of the quality of a workout was how far, how many yards or meters did you swim in this practice. And so the club program that I was a part of through most of my high school was 20,000 meters a day long course. And if you can survive that, you'll be a great swimmer. That was what the coach used to say. And there were so many casualties and fallout. So I came in and I was looking at track and field. 100-meter dash guys do not train the same as the cross country guys. It's both running. It's both, you can argue it's both the same, but it isn't. And so why are we all doing the same training? And so being able to, and not much was being done outside of the pool. So if you're training 20,000 meters a day, you don't have energy or time to go and spend, figure stuff out in the weight room. And oftentimes the person that was in the weight room telling you what to do didn't have understanding of swimming specific muscle groups. And so I trained, like in my early days, I paired up with a Mr. Universe who was like, okay, our goal is to get you to bench 600 pounds. Well, that's not going to help my swimming. And so you figure through trial and error this process, but the incorporation of strength training, mental training, and that's kind of what we're circling back to. Yeah, I did have the brilliant PhD people that I worked with in brain mapping and stuff like that when it seemed sci-fi. I mean, in mid-90s to be doing that kind of stuff in sport, coming out of an era where it was just pound yardage. That's it. That's all it takes. And so the sport has changed. The sport has gotten a lot faster. I'm not going to take any credit. There were a lot of people out there that were involved in this revolution in sport and the way that we were training and preparing ourselves. I was a brick in the wall and building a foundation that the sport has taken to the next level. And that's just the natural course of progression.
And then when you were in the race, right, and then you touch the end, and you look up, and you sort of hope for the best. Did you have any idea that this was good? This was a good race. I'm in for a big chance here. Or did there sometimes when you go, I'm a chance, and you look up and you finish sixth?
No. So I think now enough athletes have talked about this kind of zone experience where everything's slow motion. There's a heightened awareness, even as a sixth sense that happens. I mean, in basketball, somebody will do a no look behind the back pass through a crowded lane of 7 players and be able to like nail it perfectly, a pass for a layup or something like that. Time stands still almost. And when I won in 2004, I could see everything. It was almost like an out of body. The awareness, I knew where the other competitors were. Even I couldn't use my eyes to do that. And that starts sounding woo-woo. When you start talking about that experience, it really starts going into consciousness, another sense. I cannot explain it. If you've had that experience yourself, and I don't think it's that uncommon, especially in elite athletics where you're kind of reaching and pushing human capacity in every regard. That was, so I knew oftentimes the results before looking at the scoreboard.
And then realizing you're the fastest swimmer in the world and no one can ever take that away from you. Was it as good as it?
That's a good feeling. Yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a goal. And the more you invest into something, the more it's worth, right? All the struggle, like all that's part of it, the journey. You hear people talk about that. Yeah. I mean, a college degree wouldn't be worth celebrating at all if it was super easy to attain, right? Like it's 4 years. Well, that's nothing. 4 years, nothing. The amount of hours that you spend studying and going to class is nothing compared to the pursuit of an Olympic medal and what you have to apply in sport.
We talked about perspective before, but does it get better as you get older, knowing what you've done in the past?
My appreciation for what the Olympic movement is has grown, and the sport unites, music unites, art unites, um, and that
I've got a theory on that.
appreciation.
Sorry to interrupt. I've got a theory on that. I wonder if you agree or not. That it's democratized, so no one gets a different view of music. Like you two play, they play. It doesn't matter who you are. You watch the race, Gary Hall Junior swimming. No one gets a different version. No one gets a better version. No one gets a VIP version of that. It is what it is, and so the whole world needs to. Whereas maybe you can go to a fancy restaurant or a not fancy restaurant, right?
Right. Yeah. And there's some beauty in the Dionysic kind of moment, right? Like it's a fleeting thing. Like, so that one performance that U2 is able to do in the way that they're able to connect with the audience and the present, having to be present, right? Like that is something anybody that's been to a really moving concert, the way that the musicians are able to communicate. Yes. And the sport too, you can never replicate, right? Like these magical moments that happen and performance, which is so fleeting. And you can watch the video over and over and like that, but there's nothing quite like being present, and that connection between the audience and the participant is really something special.
And the
Magical.
Olympics are coming in 28 in LA. Are you excited? We're excited in
Yeah.
Brisbane here in 32, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I attended it in 1984. My father was an Olympian, and so I grew up with the Olympics, like aware of what it was. But it wasn't until I went and saw it for myself at 10 years of age that I was really wowed. Like, like and so yeah, it inspired. I can say that I am a ripple effect of LA hosting in 1984. That more than any lineage, more than my father being an Olympic swimmer, put me on that path and showed me that this is something cool, that this is worth pursuing.
And in regards to swimming now, what's your relationship with swimming like?
I was in the water. I'm in the water. Was in the water almost daily, teaching little kids how to swim. It's something that I absolutely love to do. It's a therapy for me. I get as much out of it as the kids do, but it was such a joyous exchange. And being able to share my love of the water with these kids felt really good. Like, okay, like somebody asks you what you do professionally, and you say swim instructor. That sounds lowly, but like the experience I valued so much, much more than I don't know, some corporate executive position, which I've also juggled through the years and held different positions like that. So I don't know. I had that connection through that, and I also love surfing, love being in the water there. And it wasn't until this past summer, my son, who is 17, wants to swim in college and is really applying himself, wants it, is chasing it. And there was rec swimming in the lanes next to where I was like sitting for 2 hours a day watching him swim. After a week and a half of showing up and just watching him swim, I was like, I'm bringing my suit. I'm going to jump in and swim some laps. So maybe just out of boredom, but it looked really inviting, like California sunshine. And so I started getting in and swimming, 3 times a week. And it brought back like some remembrance of why I do this. Like, I feel really good afterwards. I really should be doing this to maintain health. And so, yeah, now I'm getting in swimming recreationally. I don't usually go more than a mile, 1,500 meters or something like that.
When you see your son swim and there's obviously some parental advice, etc., how do you balance that being, the fastest person in the world in swimming for a period of time?
Yeah.
How do you pass that on? How do you parent and in regards to your kids, and how would you like to parent and see other parents behave?
I've given a lot of thought to this. Long before I was a father, I was involved in youth sports initiatives. I've done work with the Aspen Institute, which is a big think tank over here, Project Play. I'm on the National Youth Sport Health and Safety Institute Leadership Board, which provides best practice recommendations to all youth sport in the United States. That's through the American College of Sports Medicine. And, that's a tough question to answer because we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with personalities, we're dealing with psychology. So there isn't a one size fits all recommendation that works for every parent and every kid. We all know, we've all seen on youth sports, the kid that does not need to be pushed at all, that is already hyper competitive, that just wants to win, that's chasing it, and just super athlete, super trainer, super focused. Yeah, those kids don't need to be pushed more. They're already putting enough pressure on themselves and understanding. Others, I'd count myself amongst them, needed a little pushing, and so where's the balance? How do we figure that out? That's life. We're all, a little bit different, wired a little different this way. And so, my son, I was very reluctant to push, did not want to put that pressure on him. I understand what that pressure is. My father being an Olympian and trying to live up to that, us sharing the same name and everything like that. And I didn't want my son to experience it. So it took him, a little while to come around to it, but he decided for himself and is now has ownership of it, and can go forward confidently that this is he's chasing this for him, not for me.
Yeah, and the importance of a coach that clicks. Can you talk about your relationship with your coach?
Yeah, God, well, I had an awful coaching experience prior to finding Coach Mike Bottom. And I was about to quit the sport. It was a miserable experience. The coach is super important. And Mike ultimately became a father figure or brother figure, something in between, like family, closer than family to me, and helping to shape not me as an athlete, but me as a person.
And sort of the implicit level of trust there.
Yeah, you gotta have faith, right? Faith in what you're doing, faith in the team that you built up around you in order to be able to do well at the end.
And then you were going through your swimming career, and then we talked about in '99 you got diagnosed with diabetes. Do you want to talk about that particular moment, and then now what you're doing in terms of advocacy for sport and people with diabetes and living with diabetes and managing diabetes?
Yeah, it was a gut punch. It just took the wind out of me, and my brain scrambled, short circuit, static, white noise, broken television, type of thing in the room after hearing the news, and just feeling defeated, like really just, I don't know. And then there's all the stages of grief, which, I had some experience with prior to the diagnosis, but that was heavy, depression, real depression, suicide ideation, all that stuff, anger, and it takes a little while to do, to get through it. So resilience wasn't there initially, but with time you can accept, and once you do that, then you're on the path to figuring things out and charting a new course. And that's what it was. It was really, having to figure out how to get back in for one practice. How do we do that? And then, and this is the mindset, this is the skill set that it takes to be successful in sport and everything else, is how do I get better? How do I just improve just a little bit? How do I figure this next one out? How do I improve just a little bit? How do I do? And that obsession, right, of how to just stay on that obsessively. How do I get a little bit better? How do I make this a little bit easier? How do I, And that's where kind of what the skill sets that swimming taught me and the sport taught me empowered me in the diagnosis and the ability to manage the disease in a way obsessively enough, the same way that I was chasing the pursuit of perfection in swimming. I chased that in diabetes management. And if you manage the disease to that well, then you can go and you can train. And if you obviously that's its own ball of wax. And how do you get to be the best in the world? How do you beat everybody else? Now with a chronic condition that is life threatening.
Yes, and then that early, I suppose, rejection of like you probably shouldn't go to the Olympics, you probably shouldn't swim. The testing of the body and pushing in the routine, etc. What were you thinking back in '99?
Yeah, I've always been defiant. No, I take that back. When my grandfather went to federal prison, then I became very angry and very defiant. And it was swimming became a very healthy outlet to kind of so I had already kind of adopted this, whether through listening to too much Ramones or Iggy Pop or something like that. Already had this defiant nature in me where if you tell me that I can't do something, I'm going to bristle at that and start plotting, right? Like how to take you down. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, the doctor probably did the best thing for me in saying it's impossible. You can't do that. That lit a fire. And that defiant nature is really the best thing. I mean, that's a dose. A dose of that is what's needed for greatness. Anybody that did anything great defied other people. They defied the naysayers. They defied, what scientists or society deemed, possible or impossible. So to a degree, that's a really, really good characteristic.
Is there a grey area between defiance and competitiveness, or two different things in your view?
Two different things. Yeah.
Are you uber competitive?
In certain things, I have an ability to compartmentalize. And so it's not good to be hyper competitive in everything, right? Like these are the parking lot psychos, like you don't have to have the pole position and put it, and beat everybody in a parking situation, right? Like I'm not that way. I'm not that way. But in certain things, yes, I am. In swimming, I am. I like to win. I like to race. I like the competition there. It's transferred to backgammon now for me. So if you engage me in a game of backgammon, I might pick up the board and throw it with all the pieces on it. But that's it. Like, that's it. And like, unless you engage me in this one very, very narrow area, I'm freewheeling. I'm easygoing, lighthearted. I don't care. It's like in any other sports, like I watch a team. I don't care who wins. It inspires me when I see a good game and stuff like that. But that doesn't trigger that competitive mechanism where I like to win. So I feel like the back end is pretty harmless.
Yeah, but then in the pool, like let's say you're swimming, right, and you finish 6th or 5th or whatever in a race. Do you do the same thing in regards to like have a bit of emotion about it, feel it, right, and then just put it aside and go, right, we're moving on now, or do you stew on it for a bit?
We're talking about back in my competing days.
Yeah, did you stew on it? Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, anything that's a perceived failure is going to drive you much more than any win, right? Like, so that's the stuff that eats at you and keeps you up at night and pushes you harder in the weight room, and you dwell on. obsessively in the next season, in the training. And it's usually boiled down to, one person, right? Like that beat you, or whoever. If you got six, there's five people that you're like, but there's usually like one person, and that's a good thing. That's healthy competition. That eats that grinding, nagging,
Did
relentless,
you had a couple of
relentless.
those in your life in terms of swimming? Do you want to talk about them in regards to your head, and was it a driver?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The spirit of competition. There's something very valuable to that. When you have a rivalry, you have two people that push each other outside of their comfort zone, and that's what it takes. That's what great coaches do, right? So, um, yeah, that's part of sport. And it makes sport better. It makes the individuals better. It makes you push yourself in ways that you wouldn't otherwise.
In regards to backgammon now, when you lose a game, you might be a little bit angry for a bit. You're ready, you learn, you're picking it up, you're ready to go again.
Yeah, and I also feel it in golf. Um, that clenching, I want to say, I'll just leave it at that. But if there's a clenching like to it, like that part, um, it's good. It's a good thing, right? And like every putt, like somewhere, like whether you make it or you don't make it, you get that like thing. Yeah, it's good to have that to a degree in our life. Comfort, you know, it's not a good thing. Too much comfort, it's not a good thing.
How do you go with feedback? When people gave you feedback, were you like, no, I'm okay, I'm going all right, I'm the best in the world, or did you listen?
I listened. There were a few people that had earned my respect, and I'll listen to those people always, whether it's about swimming or whether it's about something else. And so, yeah, it's important to you not be a know-it-all. I hate know-it-alls. I'm a student of life. I have so much more to learn. Um, I'm not right. I'm learning. So there wasn't any ego ever. I knew where I was going. I knew what I wanted. I had to figure it out. This is life. How do we figure out? How do we get a little bit better? And so, yeah, they were collaborators. My coach was not an authority figure. He was a collaborator. And so that mentality, that approach, that partnership, that arrangement worked. And that's why the race club was built. And I brought in international swimmers, the guys that had the best chance of beating me. And how do I help them? And I brought in Australians, and I brought in Turks and Greeks, and like unlikely collaborators from every walk of life, and learned from all of them and helped all of them.
I'm going to touch on you for a second here. A couple of questions that I ask people. If you had to subscribe to one streaming service, Netflix or Spotify,
Spot it.
for the music or the podcast?
I cannot live without music.
You mentioned some bands that you loved. Do you still listen to them?
Yeah, there's a lot of bands. I listen to a lot of music. I listen, yeah.
Have you been to Australia recently or intend to come to Australia at some point in time?
Yeah, I was there. The last trip was a lot of fun because it was the This Is Your Life Ian Thorpe special edition, and I was able to go over there with my kids, and we had a good time. And yeah, I like Australia. Still not so not 100% on the Australians.
No, I get it. I
I'm
understand.
laughing. That's it. It's a jab. Lighthearted.
We're okay.
It's weird. It's weird because I've always loved Australia. I've always loved Australians, and always felt weird that I was all of a sudden like the villain, like in this rivalry with Australia. So like I've always felt since then, and it wasn't something that I chose. I was a little bit more selected, I think, as the villain. But ever since then, I'm entitled to a little a little jab or a
little jab back. Well,
tongue in cheek, you know.
And Gary, we have this thing called the scoreboard moment in our podcast, which is a moment in your life which is very vivid, very clear, and from that moment, life changed. I'm curious to know what your scoreboard moment is, Gary Hall Jr.
I got two that stand out. Well, gosh, I've had an amazing life. I've got a lot of those scoreboard moments where life changed. I've got at least half a dozen of those.
Okay, all right. Is there one that stands out, or they're just all pretty much just all blended in the life?
No. A scoreboard moment is life altering. You know, like if you can't say, like, my life was drastically different before this one moment. Like, you know those moments, like, and when they happen, and sometimes people have one, you know, and sometimes, but you're living an interesting life if you've got a lot of them. And I have a lot of them.
Gary, we also have a partner in Scoreboard, which is our principal sponsor in Swyftx. They're Australia's top-rated cryptocurrency platform with over 1.1 million users in Australia and New Zealand. And as part of their sponsorship, we do a little segment called The Bucket List as part of their new TVC, Where Can Crypto Take You? I'm curious, Gary, what your bucket list sporting event is that you haven't attended thus far but would love to attend to.
The Isle of Man. I want to do a pub crawl, this motor race over there where people just smash into trees and 1,500-year-old walls. That sounds like a great time.
That's awesome. That's the first, by the way, of the Isle of Man, and secondly, the best described bucket list moment. So thank you for that. One final question around your all-time favourite sporting moment. And I'm going to preface this because you've had a few yourself. This is outside of you and outside of your comfort zone, your all-time favourite sporting moment.
Yeah. Well, this is so easy. There was this one race. It was a long time ago, and it was Australians. And there was this relay race, and all the swimming and splashing and boom, boom, boom. And then boom, this rah thing, and then Ian Thorpe and the Australians win.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah.
Gary Hall Jr., thank you so much for being part of Scoreboard, the podcast. I very much do appreciate you giving your insights, your stories around life, your perspective now that 50 years old, your brutal honesty and your transparency. I wish you all the best in the future. Hope to see you in Brisbane in 2032 at some point in time and meet in real life, and good luck in the next phase of your new venture.
Thanks so much for having me on, and yeah, go.